Good morning and welcome to your Partner in Success Radio. I am your host, Denise Griffitts, and this podcast has been bringing you conversations with authors, entrepreneurs, mentors, and business leaders for more than 17 years. And I am honored to be ranked in the top 1.5% of podcasts worldwide. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's not because of me. It's because of my guests. They are phenomenal. And today my guest is Jennifer Jensen. She is a leadership coach who helps ordinary managers break free from the middle. Listen to that, break free from the middle and become the kind of leaders others genuinely want to follow. And today's episode of Your Partner in Success Radio is sponsored by me, Your Partner in Success Radio Preferred Partner Program. If you're a business owner, author, or service provider looking to expand your visibility and credibility through podcast sponsorships and guest appearances, visit yourpartnersuccessradio.com or call me directly toll-free at 888-719-6711 to learn more about how you can become a preferred partner and connect with hundreds of thousands of listeners across industries and across the world, really, who value expertise, authenticity, and results. It's going to be one of those days. You know how that you can't talk. So our topic today is transforming leaders into their most authentic selves with my guest, Jennifer Jensen. And Jennifer teaches how real leadership isn't about titles or perfect resumes. It's about showing up authentically, building trust by being human, excuse me, and inspiring teams to do their best work. And she joins us to share practical tools and stories from her years of helping leaders transform burnout and invisibility. Write that down. Transform burnout and invisibility into confidence and influence. And if you're ready to lead with purpose and impact, her insights will give you clear steps to make that jump. Good morning, Jennifer, and welcome to the show. And thank you for sending me your book, Developing Authentic Leaders. It's on my desk as we speak.
Well, thank you for having me. I am just honored and privileged to be a part of your podcast. So thank you, Denise.
Well, thank you. And you have to do all the talking since apparently I can't. So you're on.
That sounds good.
I wanted to ask you, when you think about how you show up in the world, what guides that for you?
So for me, it's about being true to who I am and really understanding who I am and that's with self-awareness and how I respond to different situations. And so that also helps create that ability to change some of my behaviors in order to do that.
And I was going to ask, how does that approach shape the way you lead or make decisions? But I think you just told me.
Yes.
See, I didn't even need to ask. So
I knew you were going to ask that question. That's why I answered it quickly.
Oh my goodness, we've had way too many conversations before this show. It's like we're best buddies already. So Jennifer, your background includes managing teams without formal authority, and I find this fascinating, but with full accountability. So how did that experience shape your understanding of leadership?
It was big for me because I had to know how to motivate teams and influence them without having any authority over them. So I had to do a lot of techniques and different ways to get the team on board. And I did a lot of my work in IT. And so food is a big thing. You feed them, they will do a lot for you. And so I would give
I'm
them...
a Southerner, I know that.
I would give them chocolates and say, hey, how many chocolates is it going to take to get me to the top of your list? And they'd be like, well, I don't know. What's the favor? And so I'd tell them and they're like, oh, that's 3 chocolates. And I'm like, sure, here you go.
Oh, no, you didn't give them nougat filling, did you? That stuff's nasty.
No, I gave them their like Lindor chocolates with all the different flavors because they have a wide range. And then
They do.
I know.
Mine just landed for Thanksgiving. I have a big box of them.
Yeah. So then they had their favorites and I knew what their favorites were. So then I'd slide those across. So it was being aware of your team and understanding them as individuals. But I would also put them into planning sessions where if we had to roadmap a project or an activity, then I would just put the dates up and say, okay, tell me the tasks that it's going to take for you to do this so that they would go and put that on Post-it notes and stick that up on a wall, and we can move it around. And they felt like now they were part of the team. They were dictating their timelines. And at the same time, it was team building. It was motivating for them. And it also allowed me to hold them accountable because they were now giving me the dates, not me dictating the dates to them.
And that makes perfect sense because once people feel like they're part of the conversation, they're a lot more easy to talk with and to, have conversations with about just about anything.
Totally. And it also gives the whole team a view of what's actually going on. And so
Good
they feel like they're
point.
part of it.
And that's exactly right. And I love your attitude about this. The chocolates is fine. I don't even like chocolate. I don't. I like the white ones though. Those I eat, but I give chocolates out for my, Christmas baskets and when I do my baking. So they're already here. They're in the freezer, but I don't like shopping either. I'm a girl. I am. I really am. So I wanted to ask you, what inspired you to write your book, Developing Authentic Leaders, and what, in your opinion, makes your approach uncommon?
So the reason I wrote it, I had actually gone through a very traumatic experience work-wise and personally, where it was about 5 years ago, um, where my world completely changed to the point in which it was falling apart. I was trapped in leadership chaos, reporting to a hands-off director who provided no structure, a micromanager who cut me off from essential business contacts and couldn't talk to anybody, even hallway conversations, and then a lazy boss who took credit for my work while I was trying to protect my team from the dysfunction swirling around us. And just as I had started questioning my own leadership identity, everything exploded. New leadership swept in with massive egos and even more toxic behaviors. Everything done in the current company was wrong in their eyes and was done better in the last company. And so I was like, why did you even leave then? And then my dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer and was given just a few months to live. And my world was spinning out of control at that point. And I
I
hit
can
rock,
imagine.
yeah, and I hit rock bottom, struggling with PTSD from the relentless micromanaging and started functioning in an automated way where I kept my emotions completely suppressed and I could no longer recognize the person that was staring back at me in the mirror. And it got to the point where I got a phone call from a close family member saying, Jennifer, be careful not to become so disconnected that you lose sight of who you are and stop caring about the people around you, which frustrated me and angered me at the same time. But I mulled it over. And then I started to realize that I was bulldozing through situations, making decisions without considering that others needed time to process and to feel heard and to be part of the journey rather than just the passenger in my plan. And as I started to develop that, I started to realize that I'd forgotten about the main person and the critical issue was myself. And I had to start to deal with that and come out of that. And through that, people started to see that I was coming back to my normal self and said, Jen, you've been through the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's time to write something and
Ah,
write your experiences. Because I had already started doing that as I was mentoring and coaching other up and coming leaders. And so they said, put it in a book. And so that's what I did.
were you able to stay with that same company? I'm listening to you and clutching my stomach. I would have walked.
I wanted to walk at many points and I was convinced just to stay and keep going. And in the end, I had to walk away because I just couldn't deal with it anymore. It was just too much.
Did I have to ask, and this is not what we have talked about in the past, but did anybody at that company maybe think, okay, what did we do wrong? What can we change? How can we be better? Or did they just keep bulldozing?
They kept bulldozing and they thought
I'm
they were
not
doing,
surprised. Yeah, I'm not
yeah, they
surprised.
weren't aware of what they were doing. And so it gave me a lot of inspiration in the book on what
I
not to
bet.
do.
And you
And
talk a lot about authentic leadership, and that was not what you were involved with.
no, and I needed to make sure that my leadership was authentic as well, and who I truly was, and not what the mold in the business world was.
So how did that happen? What did you do?
So through that, that was where the book became very therapeutic, because I started to figure out exactly what were the key things that I needed to have and work on, and know that other leaders, if they did the same, they could be successful as well. And so that's why I did a very practical, pragmatic approach to the book, where it's common sense, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like there's a lot of common sense, but it's very much that way. And that's why I also did it in bullet points, because I know that busy leaders don't have time to read paragraphs and paragraphs to find the nuggets. They needed the nuggets really quickly.
And I like bullet points. When I opened this book, and I think I've shared this with you, when these books land on my desk, I read them 2.5 to 3 times, no joke. When it lands on my doorstep, I kind of, I do the page flip. Ooh, what's this all about? And I saw the bullet points. I went, aha, because those make sense to my brain. Then the second time I read it was before I was going to review it on Amazon and Goodreads and everywhere else. Then the third time I read it was the weekend before we were scheduled to come on this show. I love your bullet points. They absolutely make it easy reading. And I will not mark up a book. My childhood librarian would rear up out of her grave and get me, but I've got sticky notes all over it.
I love to hear that.
So it's an easy book. It makes sense, easy reading. Okay, so before we dig into your core ideas, how do you personally define authentic? Like, why can't I say this word today? Say it for me.
Uh,
Authenticity.
the-
Yeah.
for me,
Authenticity and leadership. Yeah.
yeah, for me, it's understanding what your vision, mission, and values are of yourself and where you want to go. And it's also foundationally having self-awareness, because if you want to be a great leader, you're going to have to be self-aware and understand why you respond the way you do. And that's why I've done a lot of work in understanding the various assessments that are out there, and have found one that I love, because it looks at you, what you're like in your most comfortable state, what you're like when you're presenting yourself to the world, and what you're like when you're overextended and stressed out. And when you're overextended, we do a whole journey back to composure so that you can change your behaviors, but also understand why you're responding the way you do.
One of the things that I have had to learn to do is stop. Just stop.
Yeah.
Take a breath, go outside, stick my head in the refrigerator and, do my little meditation in there, whatever it's going to be. But I have learned through many painful lessons that knee-jerk responses are going to hurt you. Don't do it.
Yes. And I've learned to stop too, but in meetings, you still you can't walk away from it. And I've started asking questions so
And
that
pause. Just take a pause.
yes, which is interesting to see how people respond to that, because they don't like the silence.
I have noticed that. It makes them nervous.
Yes, but it's giving me time to gather my thoughts and decide how I'm going to respond in the situation, and start to ask the necessary questions.
Now, are people who are watching you lead, are they kind of emulating you with that, saying, maybe I need to just take a deep breath?
Yes, it's interesting to
Good.
watch, because like because I'm leading a team right now, and just how they're responding to what I'm doing is very insightful, because I'm getting a lot of positive feedback, because they love that. And I'm trying to get the managers as well to see how I'm leading differently than what they're leading.
Well, that makes sense. And I wanted to ask you this, Jennifer, the leadership gap. You talk about the leadership gap that no one talks about. What is that gap? And why do you think it's so overlooked?
So that leadership gap is with the middle management, because they plateau, and they are unable to optimize for their current role success, rather than developing that executive level strategic thinking. So that's when leaders focus on doing the work versus designing the work and the systems. and they need to become that bridge that requires transitioning from subject matter expert to now being the business architect who sees interactions and interconnections across all the functions in the organization. And that's a hard mindset for middle managers to change.
It would have to be. I mean, they're kind of this is just how I see it. I could be wrong, but they're accustomed just saying, do this, don't do that, and nobody gets hurt. But
Yeah.
that's not the truth, is it?
No, they're now seeing, they have to see everything across all the functions within their team. And they like to be the subject matter experts. That's what they're comfortable in. But now somebody else is doing their role, and they have to take that step back and allow that individual to do that role. And they may do it differently, but they can be better at it than even the middle manager was. And that middle manager now has to be comfortable enough to allow their team to win and be successful at their areas, and have to be able to lose gracefully to that.
I know how this works. Years ago, when I started my web development company, I've got an outsourced team. They're all contractors, and they're all better than I am at what I'm asking them to do. I can do it, yes, but they're experts, and I always hire people who are better than I am. And I realized fairly early on that I was basically just giving them orders. I thought I was the boss. These are contractors. And somewhere it kind of landed in the middle of the night. I went, I don't think they like me. And they didn't, because I wasn't treating them as the experts that they were. And I had to do a Zoom call and apologize. Said, listen, I'm sorry. I'm an A-type personality. I realized that I've just been bossing you around like I have good sense. I'm not asking questions. I'm not asking you, what can we do better? And everything changed after that. But I had to really get out of my own way.
And that's often the case. We have to get out of our own way. We're our own worst enemies and roadblocks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, I am a bossy person. I'm the oldest in the family. I'm the boss. But turns out that's not always a good thing.
No, I'm the same way. I'm the oldest in the family too, so I'm the boss.
Ah, just do what you're told.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't work. So,
Oh,
so, and you talk about too in the book, there's so much to talk about in this book. You talk about from invisible to executive. Let's talk about that.
yeah. So invisible leaders think tactically, while executives think in business outcomes and enterprise impact. And so we've got to start shifting the thinking from seeking approval to taking informed ownership of decisions and their consequences. And then we transform from problem solver to opportunity creator who anticipates the market and organizational needs. And that's big. And you start to position yourself as indispensable by becoming that go-to person for complex cross-functional challenges.
And you and I have talked a bit about how leaders can make sure their teams don't feel invisible. This is important, especially in hybrid or remote workplaces, kind of like I was just talking about. They did not only felt invisible, they felt wronged, and they were right.
And the huge thing is that you were humble enough to admit it. And
No, I
you
was
were
scared. I
vulnerable.
was I was scared that they were going to just say, "We quit."
Yeah.
And I
And
knew that I was treating them poorly. I just didn't recognize it right away.
exactly. But as you did, and that's a huge part of becoming your authentic self, is starting to see where your weaknesses are and having to be vulnerable and admit to them and start to change your behaviors. But you're going to grow loyalty and trust in like massive ways by doing that. And I'm sure you experienced that as well.
Oh, yeah, they've been with me for a long time, long,
Yeah,
long time, and I don't use them all day, every day. I use them when I need them, and they're happy with that because they have their own businesses. They have their own expertise. They are continue to grow their expertise. I stay out of their way.
definitely. And when you make others successful, you become irreplaceable. But when you make yourself irreplaceable, you become irrelevant.
Oh, say that again.
When you make others successful, you become irreplaceable. When you try to make yourself irreplaceable, you become irrelevant.
That's beautiful. I'm writing that down. So, when you were writing this book and when you were going through a lot of what you've been talking about, what were some key mindset or behavior shifts that helped you move from invisible to executive? Was there anything that really kind of sticks in your mind?
I think the big thing was truly understanding the difference between humility and vulnerability and manipulation, and also dealing with the hurt that I had experienced and moving beyond that. But a big thing for my leadership that I know I'm changing even with my own company is ensuring that the team understands the mission, vision, and values and where we're headed. Because if they have that direction, then they know what they're going for and what their jobs are and how they're going to be able to be successful in that.
Give me some examples.
So, for what part? The
Anything you want.
so for the humility and manipulation, I and the vulnerability, like with vulnerability, that's being humble enough to admit that you make mistakes. And I do that even with my team. And I will say I'm sorry if I've done something wrong, because it's not really, it's creating more respect for me than it is if I don't do that. Where if you're going to manipulate, and that could be cry in the corner or try and get somebody to do something that goes against who they are, then you're going to create disloyalty and people don't want to be around that. And by doing the humility and the vulnerability, I actually am creating loyalty within my team, and they do way more than I would ever ask them to do. And they are being so successful at what they do, and they're creative in their ideas and how they're going to present it, that I just love it because they're making me better, even though I would think that I should have an ego and I should be controlling the situation, where I'm not doing that. And I'm allowing them to be true to who they are. And they know that with Authentic Leader, we want to be giving people their authentic selves and allowing that and pulling that out of them. And so we're doing that as a team as well. And they can be true to who they are as individuals.
I've experienced that in my own team, so I agree with you 100%. And you talk about the career accelerator, which is hidden in crisis. I love that phrase. What does that mean?
So crisis will reveal who can maintain clarity and decisive action when information is incomplete and the stakes are high. And so high pressure situations compress normal development timelines, forcing rapid um, acquisition and executive presence, because it's going to force it really quickly. And organizations remember and promote those who remain steady and solution focused during the organization turbulence. So pressure performs demonstrate that the executive level competency of thriving in uncertainty is huge.
Can you share a moment when a crisis became a breakthrough for you or your team?
So just even with my own experience dealing with multiple leaders and like the lazy boss and the micromanager, and we were actually doing acquisitions within the organization. And so you were in high crisis mode in those points. And if something snapped or broke during that time, you had to deal with your response. And so it was a big time for me to be the calm in that storm and just go, okay, so what are the facts? Give me what you know. And okay, so that's going to delay this by this much. So what are we going to do? What are the solutions, potential options, so that we can make clear decisions at a quick pace here with the knowledge that we have? They may be wrong, but at least we're making them now so that we can fix them if we have to. And this was when we were taking over an organization, and it was within an 18-hour period that we had to have all the systems switched over.
So, no pressure there.
None whatsoever.
And yes, we're being sarcastic. So, how can people learn to see difficult times as opportunities for growth rather than derailment? I see this all the time. People go straight into panic mode and oh my goodness.
I think that's where self-awareness comes in and understanding how you are and purposefully changing your behaviors. So if you're in crisis mode, and this is where you can also get an accountability person on your team, or maybe your whole team go, hey, Joe, you are starting to get all agitated right now. Let's talk about that and let's try and calm the situation down so that you can then have that accountability to change your behaviors. And I know if my team sees me in crisis mode, they may say, Jen, just breathe. And then I'm like, okay, as infuriating as that is, but I need to take a step back and breathe and calm down. And just being aware of that is huge.
It is. I will often tell myself when I can see that I'm getting persnickety about something or irritated, and I'm a cranky person anyway, so it happens a lot. But I will literally say outside, Denise, out loud rather, Denise, take a seat. And that's, my shorthand to say, go outside, take a walk, do something, stop whatever it is that you're doing because you're damaging it.
Yeah. And I will often stop talking and
Yeah,
just
same
stop.
thing. And, just put your hand up like, no talking. And I'm
Yeah.
doing it to myself. Okay, so what part of the book to you right now is the most important? What do you want our audience to know about?
I think the key for the audience to understand is make sure you know self-awareness. That is foundational for anything. I think from there you can start to grow in a lot of the other areas. But also another big piece is building that team and also doing your mission, vision, values, because that's going to be huge for how your team drives and goes forward because they have clear understanding of what the objectives are.
So walk us through that. What does that look like?
So that's where you're going to sit down, and it can be just in your department, but you need to look at the overall organizational mission, vision, values too. But as a department, doing that because then the foundation doesn't change and you're going to start and do it as a team. Sit down and go, okay, so we know what the corporate organization goals are. What are our goals? What are our mission, vision, values for our team? And if you do that as a team, it's going to be much more collaborative. You're going to get quicker buy-in. And from there, then an organization, that team now knows how to move forward. And I've experienced this at one client where they didn't have that. And had a 4-month contract and the CIO said, Jen, we want to renew it. And I looked at him and I said, no. And he's like, what? Why not? And I said, because there is no mission, vision, values. The foundation is constantly changing. We're doing work and we have sign off on the work and then suddenly you change it. So I don't know where we're going and I can't work in that environment. And I thought I'd blown up my career at that point and walked out of his office. And then he called the consulting firm and said, Jennifer told me that she can't work with me. So do you think she'll come back? Because I need somebody who's going to be honest and trustworthy and will tell me the truth.
So what happened?
I didn't go back.
I'm not surprised.
But the struggle was people were agreeing with him because of the fact that that's what they thought they should do, and they were silent about their frustrations. And if you want your team to not be like that, then you need to set down clear goals for them and expectations, and that didn't happen.
And we're not talking about, standing around the water cooler and complaining about everything, including your dog. We're talking about communication.
Yes.
And there's a difference to that. I mean, if there are going to be whiners on every team, there are going to be people who are just not going to be happy, no matter what you do. How do you handle them?
So for me, with a lot of my projects, I would make them the super user so that they would come along and learn how to use a different software or whatever I was going to produce. I would bring them alongside so that they were part of the whole thing so that by the time we were done, they were champions for whatever we were doing.
How much I'm having this thing in my head. I'm watching all of this in pictures. How much resistance do you meet when people say, I don't want to do that? I don't want to learn anything new. I'm comfortable where I am, complaining about the dog. What do you do?
There's one on every team.
I
And
know.
so, like, I had one individual who we brought him on side to be the super user, but he also didn't want to be the super user or be part of the team because he knew his job was changing. And so he was resistant to all of that. And he would sit in the corner of the meeting room and I would always say, come sit by me, come sit at the table. You're part of this. Let's go. And constantly try and bring them into the communication, into being part of the team. I'd always ask him, so what do you think? What are your issues? And he even tried to sabotage us on occasion too, but I was on top of that and would say, why are you doing this? Let's talk about it. And the root cause was always fear of change, fear of his losing his job. He didn't lose his job.
But he was sabotaging himself. So, of course, he had fear.
Yeah. And it's understanding that in your own people and working alongside them to bring them on side.
So, what happened with him? I don't like him. Can you tell? 'Cause I would have just put him outside and told him to go sit by the bathroom and, hand people some wet wipes as they walk out the door or something.
I wanted to fire him because it
There you
frustrated
go.
me to no end, but I couldn't because once again, I had no authority over him. He was from a different department. But it was also talking to his manager to say, hey, this is a struggle we're having. Can you reassure him that his job isn't going to be lost? Can you reassure him that this is going to be beneficial for the organization overall? And sometimes you have to bring other people in to support that. And the team really tried to surround him and encourage him as well. And sometimes people just have complete attitudes about it and are stubborn. There's not
That's
much you can,
You're
you're just,
being much kinder than I would have been. Stubborn
yeah,
is not the word I would have used. It would start with an A and end with an ass.
yeah, well,
Oh,
you're
sorry.
absolutely right. I would say that, but I wasn't sure
Yeah.
about saying that here. But he was a
Well,
complete jerk.
he sounds like it, and he sounds just like a miserable, wretched person. And look, I don't know about you, but I don't want to be around those people. Even when I
No.
have to be, I find a way to either help them, like you're trying to do, or get them out of the room.
And that's part of the mistake that a lot of directors and managers do is keep these people on board. When all the team is trying to work towards it, towards a common goal, then maybe this person isn't the right fit. Like you can try everything to get them on board, but if they are going to continually be the wet napkin and everything, then it might be time to have that conversation and say, maybe this isn't the role for you.
Well, not only that, but I've been in these situations mostly because I was in, boardrooms and a lot of places I didn't want to be. I was in there mostly for foundations, and I would find that the more you babysat the idiot in the corner, the more other people would retract. They're like, "Why are we doing this? Why are we here? Why do we have to put up with this guy?"
Yeah. And it's actually detrimental
It
because
is.
I had no authority over him, so I couldn't fire him. I would have, but his manager had to start to deal with him because that and really he should have been let go
Yeah.
because you're totally bringing down the team and it actually impacts the team more than you realize because they start to lose motivation and drive. And you don't want that.
No,
You
you
want it.
don't. It's kind of like the guy who always comes in late. No excuses. He just, walks in the office, plunks down his briefcase, and does whatever he wants to do. Other people are watching that,
Yes.
and it's not good. It's not good for morale. It makes them wonder about management who can't tell this guy show up on time or don't show up. Yeah, we're watching. We're all watching wherever we are in the organization, whether you're like me, an organization of one, and I'm watching myself all the time. You have to show up with integrity. And if you can't Go to another room.
Yeah. And I would say, even if you are that individual who is constantly fighting and constantly not wanting to show up for the team, maybe you need to remove yourself and change jobs. Go find something that's going to make you happy and want to motivate other individuals, because you
That's
are the
exactly
problem.
right. Yep, you are. Do these people ever figure out that they're the problem, or are they just happy in their misery?
Some will figure out that they are the problem and start to change their behaviors and buy into everything. Others will just be miserable because that's the attitude they want to have.
Exactly. So, when you were developing Authentic Leaders, this book, what is one takeaway that you hope every reader or everybody listening to this particular conversation remembers long after they've heard us or read the book?
I would say that your leadership legacy isn't measured by what you accomplish, but by what others accomplish because of you. So right now, someone is waiting for you to believe in them more than they believe in themselves.
That is perfect. I'm writing that down as well. What else do you want people to know? Because, I mean, you've got a lot going on in this book, and I don't want to keep stepping into your way. You're talking about reputation, significance, legacy, and talents. We talked a bit about self awareness, truth telling. I've got the book open. I like this chapter a lot, inspiring dynamic teams. And it says, how do you create a dynamic team as a leader? Go. You start talking, I'll get out of the way.
So if you really want to create that dynamic team, that's starting to empower your team to do what they need to do and not be the roadblock for them, and actually be their cheerleader and champion. And you're also going to create ways for your team to have input, and you're going to allow your team to come and say, hey, I have this idea. What do you think? And you go for it. Go make it happen. And you're going to then go up to senior manager and tell them how great these individuals are doing, because you want to amplify their behaviors and really encourage them. And I think a key question would be to ask yourself, what did I make possible this week that wouldn't have happened without me? And what did I make impossible that could have been valuable? And start asking yourself that on a weekly basis to really inspire your team.
That makes sense. One thing that we haven't really talked about, and I'm on chapter 41, page 112, decision making and decisiveness. I'd like to go a little bit deeper in that.
Yeah. And I've experienced this with some leaders too, where they can't make decisions if their life depended on it, which is really irritating to a team because they need direction. And if you can make a decision, it doesn't even have to be the right decision at that time, but make a decision, because the sooner you make a decision, if it's wrong and it fails, the sooner you can quickly, as a team, change it around and go a different path. But always bring your team into it so that they feel like they're part of it. And they'll come up with solutions and creativity in big
See, I
ways.
infected you. Sorry.
Yeah. They'll come up with different ideas for you that you hadn't even thought of to solve the issue. And
And that
so,
happens quicker than you think.
yes. And it's amazing how that builds the team. But if you can't make a decision, and I'm thinking of a specific leader right now who can't make the decision if their life depended on it. And I'm like, you're not a leader. You need to maybe consider stepping back if you can't make a decision.
How did that work out?
It was a truth bomb. They're still figuring that one out.
Oh,
But that's how it is. And
well,
so we as
it
leaders
is. If
need
you
to make,
can't do it right, if you can't do it, somebody needs to point it out to you and either help you or advise you to go do something different.
yes. And I'm very much the type of individual that tells you what you need to know, not what you want to know.
Well, when you're working with your team, and we've talked a bit about this, but they're observing you, they're emulating you. What are some takeaways that maybe recently, maybe in the past, that you just went, oh, that worked. I'm going to keep doing that.
I think the big thing and that I'm learning and have taken away and have started talking about a lot more in recently is how trust isn't built through big moments, and research it shows that it's constructed and destroyed in micro moments. So that split second after someone asks a question, how quickly you respond to emails, or whether you remember what someone told you last week is huge. And that's a big thing that I'm learning is building that trust quickly. Because I'm working with a leader who I've got two different leaders I'm working with, and one I trust implicitly right now. And I had to think about why do I trust him so much? But it's because he's already given me quick responses. He's communicating with me on a regular basis. And then I have another leader who doesn't talk to me about anything. And even though I've said this individual seems to be micromanaging, and he goes, yes, they are, he said, I will go and talk to him. But that individual is still doing the same behavior. So I questioned, did he actually talk to him about it?
He may not know how.
No, but he could ask me and I could tell him very
Right.
quickly.
I was just going to go there or let you do it. But so many people will make decisions based on, I don't know how to do that, so I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Instead of, standing up, hitching up your pants and going for it. It could be wrong, it could be right, but you won't know until something happens.
And if you have your team support behind you because they were part of the decision, guess what? If it doesn't go wrong, they'll be right there to help you fix it.
Exactly. So, what advice would you give to emerging leaders who need to motivate others without having that title to lean on? And I think this is a lot more common than we know.
Start to become creative on how you engage your team and make sure your team is engaged. And really work on that communication and trust piece to ensure that you are sharing the information, you trust them with the information, and that they will also support you. And just bringing them into more of the decision making process and overall knowledge. I'd rather communicate too much information than not enough, because then they can make decisions effectively.
Absolutely. Let's talk about self-discipline. That's a toughie. It really is. My I have a lot of issues with focus because I have a squirrel brain. I really
Amen,
do.
sister.
I know. And I'll be going, "Ooh, ooh, let me," but I have learned to stop and say, "Denise, focus, finish what you were working on." It's tough because I have to wrench my brain back from whatever tree it just ran up while it was waving its tail at the cats below, but focus is an issue for me, but I know it and I'm working on it.
Absolutely. And I always say I have a bunch of squirrels and they're all drunk. And I have ducks and they're all in the police car.
I think in pictures, so I'm going to be laughing for the rest of the day. But I agree
So,
with you. And ducks are always paddling like they look serene and they look, like they're just floating. They're not. They're paddling like crazy.
yeah, it's underneath that you can't see. And
Hmm.
so for me, I should have Post-it note stocks because I have Post-it notes everywhere to try and help me focus and have one task on each one. And then as I complete it, I can rip it off my wall so that I
I've
have
tried
some,
that. Yeah, I
yeah,
use index cards. And it's cathartic for me. I have 3 things that I have to do every single day. They're important. They make money. They're important. Whatever it is, it's client facing, whatever it is, but 3 things that I choose that must be done that day. And once I've completed it, I throw it in the shredder. Just hearing it shred goes, "Ah,
yeah.
hold on."
Exactly, or just removing that sticky. Or
Right.
I will do lists, and sometimes if I do something that wasn't on the list, I'll go write it on the list so I can cross it off,
I do the same thing.
just so I can feel like I accomplished something.
I was making lists when I was a very young child and color coded and bullet points. So we're twins. We just didn't know. I'm
Yeah,
American, you're Canadian, but we're twins.
exactly.
But it works. You have to figure out whatever works with your brain, how your brain operates. And, once you get somewhat sorted out, you can continue to sort it out and keep your brain from going, oh my God, I quit. I don't want to do this anymore.
Exactly. And that's why I even like to do it with my teams is have Post-it notes so that they can see all their tasks and it's a visual. And then as they complete it, they can rip the stickies off and put it on the complete board.
Right.
And it's not just in the computer where you can have all of it laid out nice and neat. It's a visual and it's purposeful in removing that from one place to the next.
I did something similar in the hallway in my little foyer because, I'm always here in front of my monitors. I'm building websites. I'm talking with people on my podcast. I'm always doing something. But when I walk out of here and I head for the rest of the house, which is an open plan, I see this big area that I've got sticky notes on it. It's not mundane stuff. It's not like, here's your grocery list. That's already in my Walmart shopping cart. I don't need that. But it's things like, oh, yeah. And I'll either turn around and come back and go do it because it was important, or I'll think, okay, but I might move it a little bit, move it up to the top. But it's a reminder to be more
Yeah,
mindful.
totally. So
And is it
there's,
pretty? No, it's not. But it keeps me on task.
but it also empties your brain because you now
Yes,
know that it's on the paper and you don't have to think about that and keep bringing it up so that you remember to do it. You've kind of emptied it so that you can focus on something else.
exactly. How long did it take you to write this book?
So I actually started in 2016 and was doing it because there is nothing out there to help mentor leaders. And I only did a few chapters. And then I think it was 2020 is when I actually started writing and doing more of that, or 2021. And then last year is when I finally published it because I met with publishers and went that whole route and got it done. And I would say the writing part was the easiest part. It's the editing that totally drove me crazy.
The editing and then getting people to find you.
Yes.
You know, books are not, you have to drive people to it. I'm in the middle of almost at the end of writing my book and I know what to do next. I'm going, Christmas is coming. Maybe I can wait. No, I can't. I've got to keep moving. But you do have to drive people to it. And that's why I'm glad you're on this podcast.
Well, thank you for having me because I love it and I love the book and I'm glad you enjoy it as well and hope other readers will enjoy it.
Well, tell people something that you haven't told me yet or that you think our audience needs to know.
Hmm.
It wasn't a gotcha question. I just figured
Yeah.
something that you are passionately, hopelessly addicted to in your leadership role.
For me, I'm addicted to ensuring that the team is successful and is moving forward in a direction and we all understand where we need to go and what we're here to do on certain projects or different aspects and they feel and the greatest joy to me is when they come to me and say, "Jen, I love this because it makes sense and I know what's happening." And that's the greatest passion and joy that I have with my teams and even dealing with managers when they totally grasp where they're going and what they want to do with their teams and understand it. That to me is the greatest thing in the world.
See, you're working in an area that I have not heard of before. This is all brand new to me, which is why I'm so fascinated with the book. We hear a lot about leadership. We hear a lot about, teaming, making sure your team knows what they're supposed to be doing. We hear a lot about all of that, but I never heard anybody tackle it from the path that you have taken. What got you started? What made you say, I can do this? I must do this. This is important.
It's from the book that helped push me, but I think it just seemed from a natural flow of me already being in middle management, understanding middle managers and what it takes. and just wanting to support those because it feels like a lot of organizations don't invest in it. And I have seen a lot not invest in their middle managers or not give them the right tools to be successful. And I want it to be different. And I wanted people to truly be who they are meant to be and be the leaders they need to be through that instead of the mold that is set out before them.
And that makes perfect sense. Like I say, this is not something that I had covered on this podcast before because it never presented itself. And I'm so glad it did. So, Jennifer, we are just about out of time. Thank you for being here and for being such an honest, insightful guest. And I love how developing authentic leaders reminds us that real leadership isn't about titles. It's about showing up with integrity, curiosity, and an influence. So before we wrap up, can you share where listeners can find you and learn more about your work and the book?
Absolutely. So you can find me on authenticleader.ca. It's in Canada. And the book you can buy anywhere. I have links on my website as well. And you can buy it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. So all online. So that's great if your leaders are looking for it. And you can get it in hard copy or Kindle. And through all my work, like if individuals want to talk with me, I'm always open to talk. Or if they want to hire me, I'm open to that as well. I'll go anywhere to help anyone be successful with their organization. And you can also reach me at info@authenticleader.ca.
And you're on LinkedIn as well, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. I'm connected with you over there. Well, listen, our audience, if you want to go deeper into authentic leadership, connect with Jennifer Jensen and get your copy of Developing Authentic Leaders, a practical guide for all leaders. It's an excellent book. I highly recommend it. And frankly, I think it needs to be on your entrepreneurial shelves. If you don't have an entrepreneurial library, start one. Start with this one. So be sure to subscribe to your Partner in Success Radio so you don't miss conversations like this with experts who help you grow your leadership, your strategies, and yourself. I am Denise Griffitts, and I will see you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Jennifer, thank you. That was absolutely delightful.
Well, thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure.
Get your voice heard. If you would like to launch your own far-reaching podcast, contact Denise Griffitts at yourofficeontheweb.com and go to the podcast tab.